Hello and welcome back to Red Devils Talk, brought to you by the Elite Football Show. We all hope you had a fantastic Christmas and New Year, probably a little bit of a low-key one considering what's going on in the world. But I've got my fantastic co-hosts today, Marc, Joe and Ciaran. Marc, how are you doing? United are smashing it at the moment, aren't they? I don't think any of us thought we'd be sitting in this position, possibly taking first spot. Fingers crossed, touch wood as well, because I don't want to jinx it. Going into the Liverpool games, fantastic effort from the lads.
Yeah, it's been a very positive couple of weeks, and I think just before the Christmas period, I think we were probably hoping for a particular number of points, and we pretty much did that. So a very positive one tonight. So yeah, very happy. It's good at the minute.
Absolutely fantastic. Jamie and Helly, nice to see you in the comments today. Joe, or should I say Tellez? We didn't really expect United to be in this position considering where we were after the Spurs game. And credit to Ollie, credit to the boys. It's been an absolutely fantastic turnaround. And God, dare I say, it's too early for me at the moment, I think. We're in a title race as where we currently are, but we'll really know about this side when it gets to sort of March, won't we?
No, I'm loving where we are at the moment. I just wish Ollie would give me a bit more game time at left back, mate. But, if I don't perform well, then what can I expect, really? You know what I mean? So there we go. But no, I just think, look, I'm really happy. I think the season started brilliantly with the win against the year started brilliantly with the win against Villa. And then it got even better last night with obviously Liverpool dropping those points, and everything just seems to be going right for United at the moment. That's what I would say, and then that's why I'm cautious, because I just think it just takes something to rock the boat, doesn't it? You have to be very careful because United are winning, Liverpool are dropping points, but not only that, it seems like lots of teams are going down with COVID issues as well, and that's something that up to now, again, touch wood, hasn't really affected us too much this season. So I don't know, little things are just going in United's favour at the moment, which is nice, but as we know with football, it can bite you on the ass quite quickly, so don't get too carried away.
Don't get too high, don't get too low. That's the saying that we've all been saying. But you're getting some love here, Joe, from Heli. Love your man bun. It looks awesome. Zaki, it's great to see you, mate. You're joining us from Mauritius. I know that it's crazy time for you, so thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for your support as always. It's been absolutely fantastic. We hit 1K on our subscribers, so we want to thank you all so much. Honestly, it's been absolutely amazing. It's a 6 months journey with all you guys joining us. It's been fantastic. And hopefully we can bring you even better content in 2021. Ciaran, I've got a comment actually here from Jamie and Helen. We'll start with this actually, because it's just come out. It's Pep Guardiola having a little bit of a moan today. As Jamie says here, Pep crying today, saying he has no players for tomorrow. And Helen as well, Pep moaning about not having any players. So I tweeted that. I said, look, for me, it's a tactic where Pep's saying this just in case, because he knows this is a United side in form. He knows Ollie's got the number on him. It's a way of him, isn't it, trying to avoid the criticism that comes after the defeat. Because, look, Man City have got a fantastic squad. They might have 5 players out with COVID, but we saw their bench against Chelsea the other day. So talk to me a little bit about your view on Guardiola in his comments. And it feels like things are shifting a little bit. People are getting a bit more worried about Manchester United, and that's what I like to see.
Yeah, it's a joke, really, because if you think about it, they probably have one of the strongest squads in the Premier League. So, like you said, against Chelsea, it was crazy. So I think you look at it, and for one team that can actually deal with kind of the COVID issues, you would have said City was probably one of the teams that can do that. So it's hard to feel sorry for Pep Guardiola. They haven't even had that many big injuries. But if you look at it, other teams are going to be affected by COVID as well. For him to kind of cry saying that they don't have loads of players. Look, at the end of the day, it's up to the players as well. We clearly saw that many of their players were mixing over the Christmas break. Obviously, it's happened in other clubs as well, but it's been more high profile than at Manchester City. I think I tweeted this out as that, look, Manchester City players are in the exact same conditions as Manchester United players, live in the same city, same restrictions, and yet I don't believe any Manchester United players have come back positive from COVID. Now, I know there's been a big uptick this time, but like even last week, there wasn't a lot of, I don't think United had a single positive test, while City were getting, I think, what was it, 8 or 9 in total around their club. And look, that's probably gone up considerably after this. Because look, we saw that it went to 40, and you probably look at the team that had a couple, they're probably the ones that you're going to see more. But again, I think it's very hard to feel sorry for someone like Pep Guardiola when City, when you look at squads overall, they probably have the biggest depth of their squad overall. So again, for me, it's one of those that if you lose, it's kind of an excuse to why you lost, and then if you win, people can then be like, oh, City didn't even have their full strength team and they could still win. So look, I think you just go with it, and people make excuses. We saw from other managers this week as well, but it happens.
It's football. I mean, before I come to you, Mark, I'm going to read out a few of the comments here. Zaki is saying that Pep's mind games, or if he loses, that'll be the excuse. Absolutely. Helly is saying here, it's rubbish. Pep's got a massive squad. They've got a huge squad. They benched Aguero, Fernandinho. I believe Mahrez is also on the bench. And then they still started Cancelo, Rodri. They had Sterling, Kevin De Bruyne. I mean, that's just an embarrassment of riches. And as Jamie's saying here, blame Kyle Walker's sex parties. I mean, look, there are a lot of rumors flying around about that. Hopefully YouTube won't take that down. Or Spotify, guys, if you listen to Spotify, make sure you give us a 5-star rating as well, because we'd love to get the podcast out to way more people, because we're going to be here every single week and we're growing and we're doing some great stuff. But Mark, talk to me about what your view is on Pep Guardiola, because actually he's tailored his style a little bit. I mean, I thought City were very good against Chelsea, but I expect them to be pragmatic again when United approach that game. And I want to ask you what you think United should do in terms of the formation.
Yeah, I think his comments, as a few people have said, were damage limitation, really. Obviously, if he wins, then it's going to look like mind games. If he loses, then he's covered his arse. And I think it's, I do believe, I think it's very apparent when they played Chelsea the other day, the way that they set up. They were very much going at them, knowing that they have got defensive frailties. But the difference between United and Chelsea, I feel, is that we are probably, if not the best, counter-attacking team. So a few weeks ago, when obviously they were on a bit of a bad run, he took a more pragmatic approach because, again, damage limitation. And I feel that he will do that tomorrow. I feel that he is a lot more aware of the damage that can be done to them if he approaches it in that same sort of way. And that's no disrespect to Chelsea. That's just, I just think that's what it is. I think, Chelsea are a counter-attacking team, and therefore if you go at them, put them on the back foot, it puts them into a lot of trouble. So I think you're absolutely right, and I think this for us really, I think Ollie needs to be bold. I think that tomorrow he doesn't want to go with the usual tactics of what may have worked in the past. I think that he probably needs to take them by surprise, and that's what it's all about. It's not playing a game of football. It's about going with the right tactics, and we know that he can do that. We've seen that on a number of occasions, and I really hope that he goes potentially with enough players, probably a diamond. I think that with Pogba playing as well as he is, I think you're very much likely to see him start. I don't, obviously, to my frustration, think that we'll see Donny. And I think probably Fred as well. I think that we need to swamp the midfield, and we need to get players with the passing ability. As we know with Scott McTominay and Fred, when they're together, Scott doesn't play very good balls out to the front or out to the side. He kind of sideways or backwards. But I think with Pogba, Matic, and Fred, that can be completely different, and they can get some sort of passing range going. I think that's the best way to probably go against them. And we've moaned many times about the fact that we haven't started games well and quickly and on the front foot, but I think that we've shown that over the last few weeks, and that's exactly what we need to do tomorrow.
I'm going to read out a few comments before I come to you, Joe, because there's some great ones here regarding...
Can I just say, Haider, I don't fancy going 4-2-2. I think we need to get 11 players out there, mate, to be fair. I know we're playing well at the moment, but I don't think we can give a few players that start, mate.
I think Carl Cottadari's meant 4-2-2-2, but I do agree with that. Yeah, well, Green Devil's saying here that Pep has potentially enough players for 2 teams to challenge the top 6. I mean, like I said, they've got an embarrassment of riches. I mean, I would love to be able to say, I'm Eric Laporte, you're not going to play this week or for the next 3 or 4 weeks because I've got 3 other good centre halves that can play. Yeah. And as Zaki said here, 40 million, Ake sitting on the bench. There's a few formations here. I mean, Helly's saying that she hopes we go for McFred, let them get in the players' faces, frustrate them. Pogba free roll on the left will suit the match. I'm more inclined to do that as well. I mean, Jamie's saying here 4-2-3-1. So De Gea, Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, Bailly, Shaw. I think that's everyone's favoured back 5 right now. Looks like Lindelof actually might be back. Fred, Pogba, Greenwood, Bruno, Rashford, and Martial. Question I want to ask you, Joe, is something that gets said a lot, I think, is that the sort of McFred pairing probably is very good in terms of being disciplined. They'll get in your faces. They'll work hard, but is this the right game to play them? I know Paulie did a really good piece today, in fact, which I had a little read of, and myself and him were debating with a few fans, and they were saying, "Oh, well, this is a great time to play Van der Beek." It's not at all. This is a semi-final. We have to win this. We have to win. We have to select the players that right now are going to do the job. Now, what would you be doing in that midfield? Would you be going for the diamond, looking up to clog the channels? Because that's what I think where City excel. You want to stop De Bruyne from picking up those pockets of space. Or would you be looking to go for 4-2-3-1 and saying, look, Fred and McTominay, you've got to, get in their faces. You've got to be disciplined, and you allow Pogba and Bruno then to play. Because I think where we see Pogba best is playing that further forwards, in sort of in that left-hand channel sort of role. I actually think it's helped Luke Shaw a lot because Luke Shaw's been overlapping a lot recently. Yeah. And you've got to give him credit, haven't you? You've got to give him credit. He's playing really well. So how would you like us to set up? And should it be a case of City should be worried about us, or should we still be looking to counteract what City are doing and then looking to hit them on the break?
Well, first of all, I haven't had a chance to read that full article yet. I have retweeted it, and I'm sure it's a good read. And it'd be interesting to see what Paul had to say. Look, I think I've answered a few polls on who I would, what my midfield pairing would be, what my predicted 11 would be. And at first I said McTominay and Fred, but actually, as people have pointed out to me, and I've realised since, we actually went with that double pivot in the league game, obviously a couple of weeks ago when we drew 0-0, and Pep Guardiola did quite a good job at just nullifying what those two were trying to do in front of our defence. Obviously, he didn't manage to penetrate them, so from that point of view, it worked. But as an attacking threat, United weren't really there in that game with those two in midfield. So, I'd have actually liked to see us stick with the same 11 we played against Villa with that McTominay, Fred again. But obviously, maybe just a slight different variation of it. It might be that it moves to diamond, because I think, was it like Mark said or Ciaran said earlier, if Pep really is genuinely worried about the squad that he's got and the team he's going to be able to put out tomorrow, he's not going to overcommit tomorrow. So it's going to be on United to try and win this game in the 90 minutes, I think. You know what I mean? They're the home side. They're the team in form. And City are in form too, but United, the home side, they're in form. It's up to United to come up with a formation and a way of playing that helps them win this game. And I think they're just going to have to try and be a bit braver against City. I think days have gone now where they can just do them on the counter like they've done it at the Etihad a couple of times under Ollie, and the way that they've tried to do it at Old Trafford. I think City have got wide to that now. I think you saw that in the league game. So I think Pep's sort of starting to work Ollie out a little bit, which makes me a bit nervous for this game. So that's why I think it's on Ollie now to not necessarily change personnel, but just be a bit more cleverer at how he uses those players now. I think Pogba on the left's been a revelation, like you say, Haider, because I think because you put him higher up the field to start with and you put him in an attacking position, it tells him he has to attack. I think when he plays in a double pivot, he's going to stay in that double pivot, because the message that you're sending to Paul Pogba is we want you to sit here and we want you to look after whoever's next to you, Matic, Fred, McTominay, and do that job. When you put him left of an attacking three, he knows why he's there, Haider, and he's there to create things, to make runs into the box, to be a danger going forward, to look a goal threat. So I think the left's been a revelation putting it out there. And like you said, it's helped Luke Shaw as well, because Pogba's runs are all out to in. So he's coming inside. That's freeing up that left flank for Luke Shaw to get as far forward as he wants, as often as he wants. And we've had good attacking output from the wide areas and from Pogba himself. So I like the personnel, but I think he's going to have to be a bit more creative than just a double pivot of McTominay and Fred, because I just don't think United are going to have enough about them to take the game to City using that formation.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. It's something that I picked up on when I was doing the masterclass, is that when Rashford was playing out on the left, I like him on the right. I think he is a left winger, but I like him on the right. And I come to you, Ciaran, about this, because what we found when Rashford was playing, and I think that's where Telles struggled, and that's why I feel a little bit sorry for Telles, although Shaw, for me, is the number one right now. Telles needs time to adapt. A bit like Van der Beek, the pace of the Premier League's, it goes up and down. It's not one pace. So what you find with Telles that I think he's just struggled with, and he's had COVID, but when Rashford was playing on the left, he was hugging the touchline. He wasn't running the channels, and that made it really difficult for Telles to overlap. Because Pogba is making, as Joe said, those out-in runs, it's made it so much easier for Shaw to make those overlapping runs. And I know that you've been someone probably that hasn't been Luke Shaw's biggest fan, but you got to admit he's been one of our best players, I think, now, probably since that City game. And if he carries on doing this, I mean, happy days. He just needs to add a few more assists to his game, but I think on the whole, he's looking closest to his form before his injury than we've seen. And you've got to give Ollie credit for that, and you've got to give Shaw credit for that.
Yeah, you do. I think he has played well. Again, to say if he's been one of the best players, I think you can put a few others in that category over the last couple of weeks that have been that much better. And I think the reason why we're saying it as well is because he was okay before that Man City game, and now he's starting to get better. We're seeing him actually kind of attack a little bit more, which is nice, and you're seeing kind of the crosses coming in, and it's working because his players actually getting into the box. When before when it's just been Martial and hasn't really been getting in to try and get those kind of scruffy goals. He's seen the likes of Cavani do it. Hopefully Greenwood has seen what Cavani's doing as well, and they'll do that as well, because at the end of the day, you can't just do one thing and expect to score from it. It's kind of what a lot of people were laughing about yesterday with Liverpool, that you can put in all these crosses into the box, but if somebody's not in the right area, it doesn't matter. And for me, Shaw, before, I think he had the same type of attack. He would go up past the winger, stop, and then try and cross it in. By that stage, the run has already gone and the ball isn't anywhere where we need it to go. Like we said, since Telles came in, you can see that there's been an improvement in the crossing. I don't know if it's just the fact that Telles has come in and Shaw's done better, or if somebody actually in the coaching staff has worked on it with them, because I don't think that suddenly Luke Shaw went from being like maybe an average crosser to being someone taking our corner kicks. It's obviously something that they're working on in training. So you do have to give credit to the coaching staff. I don't want to just say for Ollie, because again, there's a lot of other coaches there that do a great job with them, and Ollie's the overall manager. But yeah, you have to credit them, because anytime you see a player improve their form, you have to give credit to both the player and also you have to give credit to the coaching, because often we've seen over the last 7 years where players' form's actually gotten worse. And it's probably the first time basically under Ollie and any of the other managers since Fergie that we're actually seeing players improve over the longer period of time. And that's great to see. Like we said it before, we don't want to get too high because, again, it's looking good now. We're in the semi-final of the EFL Cup. We're second in the league, and if we beat Burnley next week, we can go top of the league going into Liverpool. But look, anything can happen. We can end up not doing well against City and then drawing with Burnley or losing to Burnley. Then suddenly it's the opposite. So I think because of how close everything is, I think we all have to be a bit more measured in kind of what's going on. This is a jam-packed kind of January. There's a lot of games and a lot of different tournaments. Like we had the FA Cup game as well. But yeah, I think you have to give credit to Luke Shaw. He's created a lot of chances, but again, I don't think we've gotten on the end of enough of them. I don't know how he hasn't had an assist or two from a corner, the amount of those headers we've missed in the last few games, because we've been getting a lot of chances there, which before we haven't. So again, attacking wise, and that you have to give credit to the coaching staff because they're obviously working on it.
Absolutely. Guys, I'm going to read out some comments before I come to you, Mark. Ahsoka's got one here saying, Haider in his water bottle, every podcast is like Bruno and his penalties, inseparable. Absolutely, guys. Absolutely. And the black t-shirt. I thought I'd wear a hat today just to change up a little bit. But we've got some good comments here. Green Devil, competition has brought the best out of Shaw. Jamie's saying as well that Shaw has worked on his crossing. He takes corners now. The thing about the competition is really key for me, because we were saying when we saw the Max Aaron's links, I mean, I was really happy to hear that, because what you saw is Wan-Bissaka putting the performance that he wanted him to see. We saw a bit of directness. We saw intent. We saw him going and taking on his man. So that was really important. But United need competition. Fans who get upset about the fact that Aaron's was, let's say he comes in the summer. Oh, well, Wan-Bissaka, we paid 50 million and Wan-Bissaka's job is to defend. Modern day fullback has to do more than defend now. So at the end of the day, United used to have 2 or 3 players for each position where they could rotate, and then the drop in quality was minimal. And that's what United need to go to now. So it's important to not look at your players that you like and think, oh, I don't want a player to come in. We need more players like this, because you've seen that when more quality comes in, the levels go up. I do think Martial as well, with Cavani coming in, is some genuine quality that's gonna challenge for his space, because I don't think Igalo was doing that. But Charlie's got a question here, which I'm going to answer. Do you think Pep will play with a false 9 again? How do we combat that? It seems like Pep will play with that. The way to combat the false 9, honestly, then, if he's going to play a false 9, United got to play Fred and McTominay, and they've got to play 2 defensive midfielders, and that sort of go for 4-2-3-1, go for 4-2-2-2, and basically put them both in front, or make sure they're in front of the false 9, so that when he's looking at goal, they're both in front and they're cutting out the channels and those passing lanes, because that false 9 can cause United a lot of problem. If he's drifting and McTominay's pushing out to the right and Fred's, going forward, United are going to have a lot of problems there. So that's what I think Ollie would have to do. And I think the logical thing for me is to go with McFred. Joe, I'll come to you before I come to you, Mark. But do you think, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot, but do you think that the fact that Pogba's now in the side, it seems that he's got a starting space on that left-hand side, that it's actually okay to play the McFred pivot, because you've got that creativity there? That's what I've been thinking about a lot. Now that I've seen Pogba come into the side, I don't have as many issues about Fred McTominay playing in the double pivot, purely because there's enough ball-playing ability there. We can progress the ball. When Pogba gets it, Shaw's making those overlapping runs. United have Pogba taking up spaces, in the middle of the pitch or the left-hand channels of the pitch, in between the centre-back and the right-back. So for me, I actually think that the McFred double pivot's not really a problem anymore. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, no, I agree, Haider. I think, getting Pogba in the team, what you've done with that is wherever you're playing him on the pitch, you've got another passer in the team. You've got another progressive passer. You've got another person who can play a key pass, can create goals. So, yeah, you can get away with that double pivot. We've been saying we need a CDM that does the McFred job. We've been saying we need that so we can get Pogba into the team. But actually, we've found a position for Pogba now further up the team. And that's probably because neither Greenwood, Rashford, Martial have scored enough goals this season as far to say that, look, they should be playing there every game. We all know that they're the 3 strikers. But if Greenwood's off it like he is at the moment, or if Rashford has a period where he's not been playing so great, it's nice to know that you can play Pogba there, and he almost becomes another midfield option. And I think that's why it works now, because actually Pogba's seen more now as an attacking option at the moment than he is as a midfielder. So you like you say, you're getting Pogba in the team just in a different place. And to be fair, it's funny because I never really thought of playing him there, to be honest. I've got to be honest with you. I thought left side of a midfield 3, but maybe not left side of an attacking 3, if you know what I mean.
My worry with that is, Joe, is that you saw it very early on against Villa, where Matty Cash was making runs all day long.
Yeah.
His first thing isn't to look back. Now, that's fine if he's doing it on the other side of the pitch, but you still got to do that. And that's not to slate Pogba. I just don't think his first instinct is to go and track back. So that's not something you have to worry about.
No, it should be, Haider. We're not paying £90 million to have a player who's just going to spend all the game running backwards. You know what I mean? We want him to affect the game.
We'll play 80 for Maguire.
Oh yeah, but that's essential. What I'm saying is, you're not going to. I don't want to buy her as a midfielder. That's a good point, actually, Mark. But I don't want to buy a midfielder that's just going to sort of, look forward, look to run back all the time when he's there to create chances. We bought Pogba because we thought he could win games for us, score goals, create chances. So that's what you want to see him doing. But no, I think you're definitely right. You can stomach that double pivot, whoever it might be, a little bit more now, because you've actually got more creativity in the team with Pogba there. Because let's be honest, when Greenwood plays, it's still, his passing is not quite there for me, and you need more from him in the build-up. Whereas we know he's deadly when he gets in front of goal, but either that left-sided player for United or right-sided player, whichever side they play on, they need to be able to pass the ball and create chances as well as scoring, if you know what I mean. And that's where I think Mason's just got to improve a little more at the moment.
It's good points. Mark, I'm going to bring you in. You want to talk about Luke Shaw. I know you've been impressed with him, and he's someone that you have obviously criticized. We all have, but you want to see more from him, and you're impressed, aren't you, from what you've seen recently?
Yeah, I criticised him a lot in the build-up to the end of last season, really. But then I have taken a bit of a backtrack and noticed just how important he is for the team. I think I mentioned on a couple of occasions after lockdown, it wasn't a coincidence that when he got injured against West Ham or just before West Ham, we started playing very poorly, and a lot more teams were attacking us down that right hand side. But he has really stepped up, and I think you're absolutely right. But pre double leg break, he was obviously known as more of an attacking left back. Now, when you have an injury like that, that is going to have a massive detriment on yourself physically and certainly mentally. So I think that probably did have an effect on him going forward. But what we have seen as well is, obviously we spoke about this a lot in the summer, and I think this is what is needed, as you mentioned earlier, on the right hand side, is Tellez coming in has obviously given him that competition, and that's exactly what we needed. Just a few stats for you this season. So this is amongst Premier League left backs. So he's created 18 chances, and that's second in the league. 82.1% pass completion, that's fifth. 14 accurate crosses, which is fourth, and those crossing accuracy is 34.2, which is first in the league.
That's a really high for crossing accuracies. That's really high.
And these are all things that we would really go into him for and criticise him for. So this is good. This is good to see. And again, 14 take-ons completed, which is fifth. And then the success rate of that, 73.7, is first in the league. So again, one of the things that we criticised him for, and he's doing that very, very well. It's really good to see, and I really hope he can continue that. He's a very, very important player for us. He's still not old. We've got a few years left, and if he can continue that, then maybe he will be the left back for the next few years.
Ciaran wants to cry in the bottom left-hand corner. Too much Luke Shaw loving. No. What I'll do, guys, we'll move on to Pogba. There's some great comments, and I'll come to you, Ciaran. And then I want to talk. Zaki's got a great comment or question about Darren Fletcher. I know that we've had a discussion with Darren Fletcher before, and I know you rated him quite highly. So what I will do is I'll read out the Pogba comments. So Zaki is saying here, credit to Ollie for putting Pogba on the free left role. He felt Pogba was a liability in the double pivot, but at the same time realizes that for us to be the best, we need Pogba in. What I will say about that is that I don't think Ollie ever thought Pogba was a liability. It was just purely because Matic has just fallen off a cliff a little bit in terms of his overall game. And I just think that if you want to get the most out of Pogba, Ollie had to play McFred really. He feels comfortable doing that. So to get the most out of Pogba, you've got to play him further forward. And I think Ollie really deserves credit. Kolkata Darius is asking here or saying Donny is a false nine. Absolutely not. His hold-up play is non-existent right now. The reason why Donny van der Beek isn't playing is because physically he's not up to it right now. That's the reality, and that's come out from the club. Donny van der Beek physically needs to adapt to the league, and that's nothing against him. We saw the same with Fred. He will be a very good player for Man United, but right now he's the last choice midfielder that should come in. So he shouldn't come in and start tomorrow, and that's not me being harsh. It's just a massive game. Man United need to win this trophy. They really do. I don't care it's the EFL Cup. They need to get some silverware under their belt. The Green Devil's got a comment here, Ciaran. I'm going to come to you next. I think Ollie made a mistake with Pogba with his passing. I think he tried to turn him into a character type midfielder. That's a good point. Not sure it worked out as he's better going forward. Ciaran, what are your thoughts on Pogba? Because I know you felt quite strongly about him during the whole sort of Raiola comments and obviously that whole period. And you've never doubted his ability, but you maybe questioned his commitment. But I always laugh every time Paul Pogba's name comes out on the team sheet. Oh, Pogba should never play for this club again. There's no sign at all. There's not even 1% of a sign that says he's not committed to the cause. He's playing some of his best football for me for a very, very long time. Would we like to see Van der Beek playing? Yes, but you don't just play someone because they're the new shiny signing. You play who's going to fit in the system. You play for balance as well. That's very key as well. A lot of fans want to see Van der Beek. Van der Beek, Bruno, and Pogba can't play in the same team together, right, as it stands. So talk to me a little bit about your view and talk to me about the idea of balance as well, because that's something that gets missed a lot sometimes.
Yeah, that's a big one. The balance is a huge thing. We all look. You can want to play Bruno, Pogba, and Donny, and realistically, the only time you're ever going to play all of them is if you're losing 1-0 to a lower league or to a lower team where all they're doing is sitting back and defending and they're not trying to attack you. Then you'll see all three of them on the pitch. I just wanted to mention one or two things in relation to what Joe was talking about Pogba, because it was very true. The one issue I would have for this City game is the fact that he doesn't track back. And the last thing you want to do is have a 2-on-1 against Luke Shaw against Manchester City. It's fine when it's not a very top team because he can get away with it. But I think if he does the same what he did last week, it could be a bit worrying, and it might expose one part of the defensive work. But at the same time, look, I don't think many of us want Pogba being too far back. We've seen how clumsy he can be in some of his challenges. You still see that even last week, there was one or two that was coming towards the edge of the box that I don't know if it was the same for you guys, but for me, I'm like, please don't tackle him, because you knew it would be a foul against. But also, you do need him to track back, because look, at the end of the day, Bruno tracks back and he has that free roll because he knows what's needed for the team. Pogba can't just stay up and just have to attack, because again, it comes back to balance. You have to do both. We want Pogba being that more attacking threat more than coming back on defense, but you have to have that balance, and it's one of those things. And like you said, balance is the most important thing, and it's what Solskjaer has tried to get after the Spurs game, because early on the season we had no balance. We were just trying to attack and think that we could do exactly what we did post lockdown and it would work at the start of the season, and it wasn't. You have to make sure there's balance, and that's why you see Fred and McTominay play, or when they don't play, Matic plays, because you need the balance between defense and attack. And I know you were mentioned for the next thing we'll talk about, and something that Ferguson always used. That's what Darren Fletcher was for Manchester United. He was one of those players that if you wanted to just play him in that kind of defensive position, he could do it, but also he had the quality going forward as well. It was having him and Carrick in a centre midfield partnership was, look, I know they got very undervalued when they actually were playing, but I think now we realise just how good both.
Do you remember
Carrick
the hate
and
that
Fletcher
Carrick
were?
get? Do you remember there was that few seasons? Then obviously the final season with Van Persie, and he was absolutely unbelievable at playing in that deep role. And the hate that Carrick got, I think Fletcher was a funny one because I think he had a couple of really standout seasons. Remember when he got banned for the Champions League final?
Yeah.
And you would have thought, if Darren Fletcher had played that, maybe, I don't think it would have been different. That team was just on another planet, but it wouldn't have been probably that result. But yeah, do you not think that what we need to remember as a team, what Ollie sees and what the coaching team see, is that they know they've got a lot of good offensive players, but right now, what for me is stopping me from thinking I think United will be in the mix come March, April. I really do. The way the other teams are playing, the way that we can hurt teams. What I worry about is if there's enough quality in that squad to sustain it and to win it. And I think right now we have a lot of good attacking players, but how many of these players are there who can hold the fort and be that more disciplined and allow players like fantastic players like Pogba and Bruno to do their thing? I mean, Stanley's saying here, what's his Pogba agenda? There's absolutely no Pogba agenda. If anyone listens to this, I'm the biggest Pogba fan there is, and sometimes that blinds me, but there's no agenda against Pogba. He's absolutely fantastic. United are playing the way they are because Paul Pogba's stepped up to his potential. What we're saying is, and this is fair to say, sometimes he doesn't track back. It's not to say he never does it, but sometimes you've seen moments, and you've got to be constructive about these things. So thank you for your comment, Stanley, but there's no agenda on about Paul Pogba on this channel. Go on, Ciaran.
Yeah, look, I think it kind of goes to, and it's the reason why I think they have Fletcher coming in to be another coach, because look, it gives them something else to kind of look at and from a different perspective. Carrick's been there for a while, and look, sometimes you do need a bit of a shake up as well because you need a new voice in that room. And look, I think I completely agree. I think attacking wise, I think we do have the players, but the only thing that's probably missing is that out and out goal scorer. Is one reason why I don't think we'll actually win the league this year. But like you said, I think we will be involved in a race, and it could go into March, April. Look, nobody knows what's going to happen with the pandemic and stuff, but hopefully all of this continues. But but also I think defensively, let's say you get an injury to a Matic and you get an injury to a Fred or a McTominay, then the balance kind of goes out the door, and we don't have that again, and you start to see the defense leak more goals. So personally, I think the defense needs to improve a little bit more. So maybe that defensive midfielder that we've all been asking for, or maybe another, if the centre back partnership with Bailly and Maguire, if Bailly can stay healthy for the remainder of the season, that would be great. But we haven't seen it for a long time, probably since his first season with United. So I think there are improvements that need to happen within the squad in order for us to be like, I feel confident that we can genuinely be there in the last couple of weeks to win. And the other thing is our squad is still young. A lot of those Manchester United teams under Fergie had a lot of experienced players that had won the Premier League before. You saw, like, I can't remember which title it was, but where it was coming down to the last couple of weeks and we played against Blackburn and we had a lot of experienced players. I think we only won it maybe 1-0 or 2-1. You had the likes of Antonio Valencia was great that day, I remember, but you had the likes of Rooney, you had Carrick, you had Fletcher, and those players brought the rest through any of those troubles, because it happened every single year when we were winning most of the time, except for the 20th title. It came down to those last few weeks, and there was some of those games where it was 0-0 with about 10 minutes to go, and that's when you need those experienced players to get you over that finishing line. And I don't think we have that right now. We have a couple, like really De Gea is the only one that's won a title. That's in,
How are you
that's in the
forgetting
team.
Philip Jones? How can you forget him?
Yeah, well, he's not really in the squad, is he? Like at the end,
Pogba's been there and done it with Juve a couple of times, though, hasn't he? And I think Bruno's had some success with Sporting as well.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, to a certain extent. It's just like you look at Juve and most of the titles that they end up winning, they do win by quite a lot. So it's more of being in that tight title race. Like I said it to you yesterday, Haider, and I still will say it again, that I think if the title race was a little closer last year, I think Liverpool probably would have folded, because you see it when there's pressure on, that team does kind of break under pressure. Last season was perfect for them, though. Nobody was really challenging and nobody was as good as them. So you kind of see that it was fairly straightforward, but it tells a lot of a team when there's a really tough title challenge, how they react in the last couple of weeks. We saw all the time that for the most part, Ferguson's teams were always challenging and tend to get the results when they mattered most. But his team was littered with players that were experienced and knew how to win and close out seasons. We just don't have that right now. So there's those little bits and pieces that kind of worry you to actually winning the title. But I think you look at the teams and I think we've been excellent, and you can definitely see United being in this title race for the next couple of months.
Agreed. I mean, Matic has won it as well. He's going to be very key. I think his winning pedigree is so important. The Green Devils got a good comment here. Ollie, Carrick, and Fletcher will be vital for those youngsters if we do manage a title race. Absolutely. We're going to get on to Fletcher in a bit, but we'll go to Mark first. I know you wanted to say, talk about Pogba, and there is this, there's people in the fan base, and I don't blame them for feeling like this, because, you know, the amount of times Pogba's come out and said what he said, and it's very frustrating, but, you know, people question, why is he now starting to play really, really well? What's the reason? Honestly, and I can put my hand on my heart and I can say this, I really don't care what his reasons are. If he plays well and Man United win the league and United go to the next level and we become a fantastic side to watch, I don't care if he's off at the end of the season. I really don't. Like, United should use him as much as he's using United. And that's the whole point. I think maybe as fans, we get caught up in and we've got a fantastic, we've got an incredible club. I'm not saying we haven't, but for people that aren't who aren't United fans, they don't really think like we do. So I just think maybe sometimes taking the emotion out of it and thinking it's a business, right? Pogba, you play well, you'll get your move. We'll get our money as well. We might also get a Premier League title, and that's where it should be, rather than every decision being emotional. Every time Pogba gets selected, there's an uproar, because I see it every single time. We just need to kind of just get on with it and be a bit more, as fans, just accept what's going on and enjoy it, really, shouldn't we?
I think you're spot on. I think, listen, I was just as unhappy as everybody else when all of those comments and reactions and whatever else came through. But ultimately, after you have a bit of time to digest, it doesn't really matter. If he's playing well at the moment, and it means that there's a good mentality around the team, it means that we're winning games, it means that he could be a vital player in that progression towards hopefully some sort of success this season. And that doesn't matter. If he goes at the end of the season, that's absolutely fine. As we've said on many occasions before, Manchester United will move on. Pogba will move on, and we will thrive after Pogba, hopefully. And it doesn't matter. Um, and you're absolutely right. I think this goes to how important I think this game is tomorrow. I know he's been in semi-finals and things before, but I think that this is probably his most important game. This is the game where he could potentially break that duck of getting to a final, the potential for silverware, and it's a great opportunity, and this is a big one. This is something that he needs in order to. You were saying earlier, Ciaran, about obviously there are winning mentality players. There are players in the squad that have won things, David De Gea, but it's with a different group of people now, and that can have a huge bearing on it. And I think that with that tight knit group and the pressure that's on Manchester United and everything, if they are able to go against the grain and get to a final and win something, that creates a different bond within that squad. And that's really important, and that's why I feel tomorrow I don't like reading any comments to say that this is not important, that we need to focus on the league. Listen, before the league started, we didn't think we were going to be anywhere near this, and we are. So let's just try to not take it for granted and appreciate the situation we're in. Okay, we'll do what we can and we'll deal with that. However, we are also in a very good opportunity to potentially get some silverware as well. The league isn't a given. We've still got a long, long time. I absolutely agree with you that I feel that we probably will still be in the mix, at least I hope, by March. But again, that's not a foregone conclusion, and therefore I feel tomorrow is an absolute must-win for Ollie. I don't think it puts any more pressure on him that if he doesn't win it, but I think that it's probably one of his most important games yet.
Absolutely spot on, Mark. I couldn't have put it any better. And Heli has got a fantastic comment here. The last one I'm going to read out about Paul Pogba, and this is exactly how I feel. Comment on the night so far. Whether Pogba is playing to increase his own value is irrelevant, really. Ollie said he works hard, he's committed to the squad. That's all that matters. Exactly, and that's the last thing I'm going to say on this show before we talk about Darren Fletcher's appointment. But the thing with Pogba playing is that Ollie's with him every single day on the training ground. Now, if you trust Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in his transfer dealings and his management and his coaching, and you have doubts about that, then don't have doubts about what he sees with Paul Pogba. I think that's very fair to say. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, whatever I've thought about him in the past, he does not strike me as someone who is easily influenced by a star player. That's not what I think. He will drop him. He did it with Sanchez. He did it with Lukaku. He will ship you out the door. So obviously, Pogba is doing what he wants him to do, and that's the most important thing. But let's go on to Darren Fletcher. Guys, let us know your thoughts about Darren Fletcher, what your thoughts are. Joe, how do you feel about this? Because you see polar opposites, as you always do in the Man United fan base. I know Ciaran's got a bit more sort of in-depth information about Darren Fletcher and his coaching ability, but is this a good move by Man United, or are you a bit more wait and see how it goes because you're not so sure how this is going to how it's going to play out? Because he's not exactly someone with years and years of experience in management.
No, look, Ciaran definitely probably the best person to answer this because I know he follows the younger age groups and the academy more than I do currently, so he's a good person to ask about this. But I'm only guessing that he must have done some good work at the under-16 level to obviously get this, because he can't have been. I don't know what the under-16s have been doing. I don't know if they've been successful, but you don't get a promotion obviously without being good, and that goes for any job at the end of the day. Look, it's one of them, isn't it? It'll all depend on results on the field, because how many times have we seen it, especially with the Ollie in crowd, that when it starts going wrong, that's one of the things that the Ollie in crowd turn toward. They'll look at the back room staff that are there, and instead of blaming Ollie, they'll be like, oh, look, you got Mike Phelan there, for example, who's probably aging. Is Michael Carrick, is he a good coach? Is Kieran McKenna a good coach? So it'll all depend on results to see how successful it'll be. I've heard a lot of rumours that He's mad about tactics. He's a real big tactician. He's a good student of the game. So, again, that'll be great because sometimes I do think Ollie needs a bit of help tactically. You've seen in games when it's sort of stagnated a little bit, it's been 0-0, or he hasn't things that if Fletcher's there and he's got an idea tactically, a change up, that can help Ollie, because I do think he needs some help in that area at times. And also on the Mike Phelan thing, could this be the start of phasing Mike Phelan out a little bit? It's obviously another coach that's come in. Will he take a lot of the workload that Mike Phelan's currently doing off of the team? I'm not sure about that, because I do think that Phelan spends a lot of time working with the defence, because out of all those coaches, he's the defender amongst them. So I would imagine he works quite a lot with defence. And obviously Fletcher was a midfielder who did play centre-back a couple of games for us. And I think
so did Carrick though, didn't he?
But no, I think it's a good appointment. I think, again, it's just someone who's got the DNA of the club. He gets it. And the other thing I'll say, and you've got to be careful with this, because Gary Neville's one of the best pundits there's ever been, and then when he managed Valencia, it was awful. But whenever I've seen Fletcher on the TV talking about the game, I've been impressed with him as well. You know, he seems to have a good knowledge of the players out there. He's watched a lot of football, and he talks really well. He speaks really well. So that only bodes well. So, yeah, I'm happy with this, and I'm actually a big fan of Darren Fletcher. I think he's a lovely lad. So I wish him all the best, and hopefully it works out for him and us.
Absolutely. We've got a few comments here, Ciaran, before I come to you. Zach is saying that listened to Andy Mitten early on Fletcher and had good words to say out of him. Joseph as well. Rio, nothing but praise for him. Ciaran, talk to me and the listeners a bit more about Darren Fletcher, because I think Joe brings up some good points. And we know that Dempsey's been, I believe he's down. Is he with the reserves now, or he's he's with the academy? So I think that was a big one. I think Dempsey was someone who was probably lucky to have that position he did. He didn't come in with great credentials. And I think Ciaran McKenna is very, very talented. By all accounts, he is the one. I mean, how old is he? In his mid-30s or early 30s? He's at Spurs. He was fantastic. We all know Ciaran McKenna is a fantastic coach. But what United do need is they need a bit more experience. You got Mike Phelan in there, but I do think Joe's correct in terms of when United had Phelan as a second choice under Fergie. I believe that was when United played their worst football. And that's no surprise that we did see that a bit earlier on. But I'm not too sure what will happen at the end of the season, but having someone like Darren Fletcher come in with that experience is only going to be a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, and it kind of goes to what Fergie used to do with his assistant manager, that he changed it every couple of years, because things get stale if you keep the same coaching staff the whole time. You do have to keep on improving it. And if that means you start someone in the reserves or the academy and you want to see how they can put your plan in place that you have in the first team at the younger levels and how the players react to it and how well you do, it's the easy way to kind of come in. Like I said, Darren Fletcher it's a new voice in the room that the players aren't used to, because look, they've had the likes of Phelan, they've had Ciaran McKenna, they've had Michael Carrick for a couple of years now. So at the end of the day, I think it's just one of those where you do need to kind of freshen things up a little bit, and you bring in a new coach. Look, we don't know what's going to happen. Look, eventually Mike Phelan will go, because I can't imagine him wanting to stay coaching for a load of more years. Because again, once you've hit and got to coach for United, it's hard to kind of go after that. So you could be looking at it, and Solskjaer, if he's planning for the long term, he may think, okay, maybe Ciaran McKenna could be the next assistant manager, or maybe it's Carrick, or maybe it's even Fletcher, depending on what they do. The one thing that you can say about Fletcher, even towards the end of his career at United, where he was diagnosed with the ulcerative colitis, that because he couldn't play, he was very actively involved in the under-23s at the time. And that's where he actually started playing again. So he was playing for, I think, 6 or 7 months with the under-23s before he got his move to West Brom. So he's one person who, even towards the end of his United career, always looked forward to what he would do after football. And look, he took his time out for a little bit of time. We've seen him on TV, but I think he's coming the right way. He's gone through the club, he's gotten his coaching badges, and now it's probably the right time because he's gotten that little bit of experience so that he can push up onto the first team. And look, there's a lot of players in our first team that have come through the United youth setup, and a lot of those players will remember Darren Fletcher playing in a lot of important games. You look at the likes of Greenwood, Rashford, all of the likes. We've all seen him, and he's been a teammate with the likes of De Gea, and we've mentioned a couple else with Jones, for example. So I think it's nothing but positives. Like when you hear everybody come out and there's not a single person that can criticize him, that's usually a good sign, because you'll often hear with a coaching hire that while a lot of it will be positive, you'll hear negatives from other people that have worked with him. You can look through even some of the people that he's worked with in West Brom, and they have nothing but good words to say about Darren Fletcher. And it really tells a lot about not only the footballer, but also the man for Darren Fletcher, because he's brought positive vibes everywhere he's gone. So for me, it's all positive, and we'll see what he can do over the next couple of months.
Absolutely. Joe, before I get to you, there's hold on one sec. There's a few comments here from Carlos Diaries. Carlos Queiroz is free now. We should bring him in. He's too past it now. United got to be looking forward. You've got to be, and I like the idea of Reddy Mullenstein. I absolutely loved him. And I mean, you just have to I could listen to him for hours and hours. The way he talks about football, he's such a tactically astute manager, or coach even. But no, what United need to do is need to be finding people that are more in touch with the modern game. Carlos Queiroz was what, 12 years ago? He's 76 now, I think, or something like that. So I wouldn't be looking to bring him in, Joe. But yeah, talk to me a little bit about Fletcher. I know you've got a comment on him. I know you're a massive fan of him as a player. Does it worry you a little bit that just because he was a manager's dream as a player, right? You asked him to go and do a certain role, and he would do it to a T. Are you a little bit worried that maybe he doesn't have the experience to come in and change the needle that much? Make that much of a difference. He's going to come in and be great for mentality, but I think people need to be a little bit cautious, not expecting to come in and be, the next Pep, because I think that's what's been said a few times. Oh, Fletcher can do this, he can do this. Well, yeah, but he's not really had a gig yet. So let's just calm it down a little bit, and let's just enjoy having him back, because his mentality is going to be great. And if we're in a title race, you don't want anyone else than Darren Fletcher, would you, in that respect?
Yeah. No, I think, look, to be honest with you, mate, it might end up being like United's version of Arteta at City, and then Celtic might end up taking him on and it'll all go Pete Tong for him. So, you know what I mean? That's where you've got to be careful. But look, another point I just wanted to make on Fletcher as well is, let's not forget, when United have flirted with this idea of a director of football, a sporting director, technical director, whatever you want to call it, he's one of the names that's always been mentioned as a possible candidate. So, I mean, there tells you a lot about how much he's thought of in the game, his grounding within the game, sort of his tactical knowledge, in the way he gets Manchester United. Because why would he be thought of for these roles, especially sporting director, technical director, if he didn't have any knowledge of the game or any knowledge about how United should be playing? So I think that's another sign that he could do really well. You have to be careful that you don't just hire him on sentimental reasons, because you don't want your club to become an old boys club. Do you remember when Giggs got the job and all of a sudden he brought Nicky Butt in, Paul Scholes, and it looked like the class of 92, 50 years, and it's great to see, but actually when you put it into practice, it doesn't always work, does it? You know what I mean? So you have to be careful. But I just think, look, I don't know what he's done with the under-16s. And I don't know enough. And the other thing with coaches is, we sit here and we have a go sometimes at people like Mike Phelan and Carrick and McKenna. What are they responsible for? We don't actually know. Like, are they leading sessions? Are they creating sessions? Are they putting cones out? Are they deciding the tactics?
The biggest thing as well, Joe, is that actually we sit here and think, what does Carrick do? Well, the Carrick's not going to be the guy that's going to scream and shout. He didn't do it as a player. He's not going to do it as a player. We don't know what he does. We're not there on the training ground. I can tell you now, is that majority of managers, even people like Ancelotti, they don't coach, they manage. They've got a team of coaches that coach. People like Arteta is a coach. He goes out on the training ground, he sets up drills. Yeah. But Ancelotti's not a coach. Like Pep's a coach, but some managers aren't. Like Fergie was fantastic at managing, but near the end, he wasn't going out and training the lads. He would stand there and he'd oversee it.
And from what we're hearing, Haider, I think this is the way United are going with Solskjaer. I think this is why he's got so many good, what he thinks good coaches, so many coaches, because I think Ollie's happy more to take he wants to become, and he'll only be able to become this if he's successful, because you have to earn the right to do this. But he wants to manage the whole club, if you know what I mean. He wants to be able to control everything like Fergie did. You see, it become easy for Fergie to do that because he built up a body of work that suggested, actually, yeah, leave it to him. He obviously knows what he's doing. He's won X amount of titles. Just let him get on with it. Ollie's got to get to there. But if he could win it this year, you know, there's a good argument then for Ollie to say, right, I'm going to take a back seat on the coaching here, and I'm just going to control, you know, the team talks. I'm going to be the man manager. I'm going to be the Ferguson, basically. Because as we've talked about on this show before, Fergie didn't do a lot of coaching, especially towards the end. He didn't do a lot of coaching, but for me, you have to earn that right. And it's difficult for Solskjaer just to come in and say, look, I'm going to be manager, because you haven't got the reputation. But I think if he starts winning things, he can do that. And I think that's what he will do, because I think he understands, Ollie, that maybe his greatest strength is dealing with people person. I think the way he deals with Bruno is fantastic. I think there's so many managers out there that could lose Bruno quite easily, because he can, I think, be quite an emotional, sentimental player. And I think if he's one of those, if you criticise him too heavily, you could lose him. And I think Solskjaer has a way of dealing with him if he's not happy with him. Like the comments after, I think, was it the Leicester game, when he said, he pulls my hair out. I pulled my hair out over him at times, but it was in a jokey way. It was tongue in cheek. He wasn't having a go. He wasn't going in there and nailing him. And that's what I've been really impressed with Ollie more than anything, is his man management since he's come to the club. I just think he's brilliant dealing with different individuals, because there are so many different individuals in the dressing room.
Look how he's dealt with the whole Paul Pogba situation.
Yeah, and that as well. Brilliant.
Phenomenal, the Harry Maguire situation. What I will say about Ollie is, I mean, Lukesh has got a great little comment here. United DNA is a very misunderstood term in our fan base. I think that is actually such a fantastic point. But what I will say about Ollie as well is that, have you noticed when United lose, he brings it on himself. He says, maybe my selection was wrong, but when United win, he bigs up the players. Complete polar opposite to what Jose Mourinho does. And that's big. Look, players are different nowadays. It's a new generation. It's not when you had the likes of Roy Keane, and, you know, these players are made of different stuff. But the players nowadays are a bit more, I wouldn't say more, maybe more emotionally intelligent. I know that's a bit silly to say, but, you know, if something's not right, they won't go ahead along with it. They'll say, no, I think the manager's wrong, and the manager goes. But one last point before we talk about Eric Bailly, because he's been absolutely fantastic. But it's from Heli here saying that Ollie's gone full tech as well in areas, getting the club up to date and into 2021. Green Devil as well is saying a forward way of thinking is always welcome, especially since we appear to be taking a data analytical point of view with recruitment. Also, one of the biggest and most positive things is this. United was so far behind Liverpool, City, Leicester City as well, in terms of using these analytics to recruit. Now, I always bring up this story, and I spoke about it on Twitter the other day, when Jurgen Klopp wanted Julian Brandt, didn't get Julian Brandt, he went to Dortmund, and he didn't want Mo Salah, but the data analytics showed that Mo Salah is the player that's most like Julian Brandt in terms of style, in terms of numbers, and they told him, you got to buy him, and look, the rest is history. And Man United haven't done their recruitment like that, and the fact is now that they're starting to do that, and they've still got to make a little bit of distance up, but they have the money to do that. They have the infrastructure if they want to do that. So, Ciaran, I want to come to you on that quickly before I come to Mark about Bailly. But talk to me a bit about your views on the data analytics, because once United start to implement that and they have 2 or 3 years of that, you'll see the change in the club. It'll go forward tenfold.
Yeah, it's crazy that it wasn't a big thing before, because, look, even we can talk about Liverpool, and yeah, they've been the ones that people talk about because they just won the league and the Champions League recently. But you look at sports in general, and most really good organizations have big data analytic departments. And the fact that we haven't had that at the size of a club at United is kind of ridiculous. Or even if the fact that we had people that were working there and not kind of using all that information, it's negligent, really, for whoever was in control of that. Well, I don't know who it is. Look, I know a lot of people want to blame the likes of Ed Woodward and Marc Joe for everything, but look, there's probably another manager somewhere in Manchester United that is in control of that. And the fact that why we weren't using it before it's a problem, because that analytics was big, it started probably a decade ago, and we're only now using it. And it's not shocking to why we were so far behind some of the other teams, and why why a lot of the transfers that we've made prior to Ollie coming in didn't actually make sense for the long-term view, and why it makes sense now. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think that's the biggest problem, is that it actually did seem like
I 100% think that's what happened. I'm not even. Di Maria is 87 on FIFA. Let's sign him. Let's not talk about the fact that I want to be at United.
Yeah, it just seemed like if the name was popular, then we should sign him, instead of doing what we actually did under Ferguson, where we signed players when they were young and built them up. And look, if they're going to move on from United and you're going to make money, it means that you've done your job. Because at the end of the day, we complain about it now. If United are selling a player, for the most part, they're selling a player because they failed. Because most players are ending or getting into the good part of their career when they come to Manchester United or a club like Manchester United. The problem is that under all of our managers after Ferguson, when we were selling players, it was because we wanted to sell the players. When we had Ferguson, most of the time we were selling players is because a team like Real Madrid were coming in and trying to buy them.
Or we'd basically extracted every single bit of ability from them, and they were just needed because they were dare I say, dead wood.
But that's also why I say, in terms of with Pogba now, once we've seen that he's committed to the causes, you use him as much as possible. So then if he's going to go in the summer, you get every bit of utility out of Paul Pogba, and then maybe you burn him to the ground for the next club where he's already tired. Because look, this is going to be a real tough season. So while you have him, you use him. Look, at the end of the day, I think we can all agree that a lot of the things that the club have done prior to probably Solskjaer's second season coming in was kind of ridiculous. And I think this is a great sum up for every part of the club, that the fact we weren't using a lot of this information that was out there for all clubs to use. It just shows kind of the people that were in charge just didn't really know what they were doing, because like Ferguson actually used a lot of this information for himself. Now, he didn't have a big group of people telling him what to do. He knew, and he has his scouts that he trusted, and he was looking at different parameters all the time. And that's why you saw young players come through. It's the reason why he bought Wilfried Zaha in the January before he left. He knew what a good player he was. But then the problem is, if the next manager can't use him, like David Moyes didn't want to use Zaha, then it doesn't work that way. Under Ferguson, it worked because it was kind of like Wenger under Arsenal. They controlled everything. But then after that, you needed to use the information that was out there, which other clubs were using and United weren't. And look, it's good they're using it now, but again, it's still about 6 or 7 years too late.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, we're going to move on to buy, and I'll bring Mark into this. But Zarka's got a question here quickly. I'll answer this quickly. When we go for Grealish, should we go for Grealish? Sorry, when Pogba leaves. What we'll do is we'll talk about it next week. But my quick thing on that is actually United need Sancho more than Grealish. If they're going to play the same formation, which they did the other day with Pogba playing on that left-hand side, Grealish makes sense. I still think that Jadon Sancho is number one choice, and I still think he's the right option. He can't play as deep. I don't think Grealish, that's where he's a little bit wasted. I think we've already got Van der Beek as well. I just think you're piling on players that we probably don't need as much. I love Grealish. Do you want to add to that, Mark?
Yeah, I think that would bring the best out of Aaron Wan-Bissaka as well. I feel that because we don't have a proper right winger, and I know he needs to develop his game getting forward, but because we don't have a proper right winger, it doesn't enable Aaron Wan-Bissaka to properly overlap and get as far forward as we want him.
Absolutely. Lakesh's got a question here saying, what's a good site apart from Who Scored? Sofa Score's great. You can download that app as well. I use that when I do the masterclass. That breaks down sort of player stats a little bit better. Who Scored is great for understanding the formation.
Football Reference is good as well.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a really good one. So in terms of Caicedo, I'm seeing a lot about Caicedo. Manchester United are very, very interested in Caicedo. Chelsea are as well. PSV, he wants to go to Manchester United. What's holding up at the moment is that Man United is deciding whether to buy him now or whether they can buy him in the summer. So honestly, I don't expect Caicedo. I think he probably will come in, but I don't expect him to come in and make as much of an impact as we all hope. He's a very, very talented. He's the best thing coming out of South America. He's physically ready to play in the first team, I would say. Maybe he might struggle with the pace, but in terms of comparing him to Pelestri and to Diallo, he's way further ahead in that sort of development. So he is a player. I think that's the only player I think United will probably sign. I don't expect us to get Aaron's now. I think he might be a summer buy. Will United get a centre back? Probably not. Pau Torres is the number one choice, by the way, everybody. It's not Upamecano, it's Pau Torres. It's been Pau Torres since the summer. Ciaran knows this. I've spoken to someone who has said categorically as well, it's Pau Torres, which makes sense. Otherwise, United would have probably bought Upamecano last summer. I think the game against
Price.
Yeah, and the game against Leipzig probably turned United off a little bit because he did have a shock and he hasn't had a great season. I like Upamecano, but Pau Torres is the number one choice. So I think in the summer, if Real Madrid do go and get rid of Ramos, is he going to go there? Possibly. I think they're the ones.
The only thing is, I'd say you look at David Alaba to go to Real Madrid. That one seems.
Where does he play? That's the question.
Yeah. So it depends. If that happens and if Ramos stays, then United have a free run at Pau Torres, because I know Madrid have been one of the biggest kind of fans of him. And again, it came down to price last year why they didn't sign him either.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about 60 million euros, I believe his release was. Mark, I haven't forgotten about you, mate. I'm going to come to you right now.
I was getting a bit worried.
No, of course. I'm going to come to you about Eric Bailly because I know there's a lot of questions about Eric Bailly. I mean, Zaki is saying here he would pay 50 million for Bailly not to get fit. I mean, I could think of a lot of better ways to spend 50 million than paying for Eric Bailly to stay fit. But Helly sort of shares my thoughts on Eric Bailly, that he scares the life out of me, but I love him. Just don't go all out with the flying karate kicks and stay fit. Are you impressed with what you've seen with him? Because I think he's someone who I think he splits opinion. For me, I thought he was United's most talented defender a while back, but I think now he hasn't played enough. So the biggest problem for me is that you got to keep fit. When he's on form, he looks fantastic. It works better with Maguire in terms of the combination. But the biggest problem, I think, is whether he's going to keep fit. So I feel like we've got to wait. If he can play 10 games, 15 games, then we can start talking about Eric Bailly being a fixture in the side. But apart from that, though, how fantastic he's been. And he's quite clearly a very, very popular member of the squad. You saw the way they mobbed him at the end of the game after that fantastic block, which is as good as a goal, really, isn't it? That's a goal-saving one. So, yeah, talk to me about your thoughts on Eric Bailly. And should United be pinning their hopes on him as the starting centre-back with Harry Maguire?
Yeah, that was wonderful to see at the end of that game, wasn't it? And I think that kind of didn't shock us all, but I think it really brought to the forefront just how close the team are. Now, I've said for a long time that Eric Bailly on his day is an absolute monster. I think his defensive awareness is so much better. He's obviously very quick, very good at the one-on-ones, and really, whilst he might not be the long-term answer to what we need, because I just don't think he's probably going to be fit enough all the time, he is an answer to play alongside Maguire and Lindelof. We've said on a number of occasions, Maguire and Lindelof, in a roundabout way, are very, very similar players. And he's been brilliant. And as you say, as long as he can stay fit, then great. But it's just a case of when. Do you know what I mean? And ultimately, yeah, he's been phenomenal, and I'm not just jumping on that bandwagon because he has been for 4 games. He has been brilliant, and I think that the Spurs game really taught him a lesson, to be honest. And I think he's had that opportunity to come in since Lindorm's, and it's been great to see, and I just hope he can continue. Whether that means we'll get someone else. I mean, I was talking about this the other night, really. I mean, just because Bailly gets injured or there are 1 or 2 other defenders that aren't quite up to scratch doesn't mean that we can't really offload players at the moment, at least not yet. So just because that happens doesn't mean that we go out and buy another player, because that just adds to the extension of our list. So as I said, I really hope he can stay fit, and hopefully that might be more of an answer of getting over the next few months and having a bit more solidarity at the back. He's been brilliant. I'm really proud of him, and I'm so happy that he can answer those critics, and hopefully we'll see a few more games going forward.
Well said, Joe. I'm going to come to you, but I'm going to read out some comments. I know Reese is gutted about Upamecano. Reese, I remember doing a show with you in the summer, and you were me and Joe were actually both on that show, weren't we?
Yeah.
And we were all we were raving about Upamecano, and I would love Upamecano, but that's just the reality of it. If United wanted him, they would have signed him in January. I don't think it's a money thing. I just think that Ollie wants a left-footed centre back purely because, as well, you got to remember. I mean, with a left-footed centre back, when they're looking to open their body up and play down that channel, to Luke Shaw and down that line, it's much more. You can start attacks off a lot more cleanly. That's basically the reason with that left-footed centre back. I mean, I never really knew that. Well, I did know there was a difference, but I didn't really think it was that important. But actually, it's a massive thing. If United are going to play out the back, then it's a better angle to play with your left foot. You can push Maguire to the right side of the defence. I still have a little bit of worries about that partnership of Torres and Maguire. Not that Torres is slow, but he's not Eric Bailly quick. But I'm going to read that Green Devils comment because I know how much you've been repping Bailly for so long and genuinely believe when fit, he is technically our best defender. He's a bit of a nutter, but name a title-winning team that didn't have a nutter. Talk to me a little bit about that, Joe. Are you of the view that that Bailly is our best centre-back when fit? Because I see this a lot, and actually it's just something that I really just don't agree with. Because I just think when you've been out of the game for 2 to 3 seasons like he has, you can't turn around and say he's the best when fit, because I don't think he's developed his game enough. I think instinctively he's the best. He's very athletic. He's actually good on the ball. I think people do overlook that. But in terms of his defending, there's so much more to just defending to tackles and blocks. It's positional awareness, there's composure. There's all these things that you have to add. I think he's missed out on some very crucial game time in that development. And that's why I worry about Axel. I really worry about Axel because he's had those injuries and he should be playing now. He needs to be playing. Yeah. Well, I said to loan him out. Do you remember, guys, I said at the beginning of the season, I said loan him out if you're not going to play him. But do you think that it's a bit premature to say this about Bailly? We're all excited. We think he's fantastic. But I don't think he is United's best centre-back, at least not right now.
No. First of all, if Reece is still in the comments, leave your date of birth in there and Haider will send you a Bayern shirt with Upamecano on the back for your birthday, mate. I'm sure he will. He's nice like that. Nice, authentic shirt. No, look, on Bailly, mate, to be honest with you, I think Bailly's got the perfect credentials to play with one of our other centre-backs. I don't think that makes him the best defender at the club. I think it works for Bailly that he has a Maguire or a Lindelof next to him, same as it works for Maguire and Lindelof to have a Bailly next to them. They complement each other. I think we get too carried away with thinking that we have great defenders at the club when one of them have a good game or one of them do something that we want to see. I think all good centre-backs throughout the world, throughout Europe, throughout time at Old Trafford have always had a good partner.
Throughout the galaxy?
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Look at like Vidic with Ferdinand. I never thought either of them were as good when they didn't have the other one next to them. Bruce Pallister probably weren't as good when they didn't have the other one next to them. I just think it really helps. I think it helps having someone like Bailly playing next to Maguire. I think that's why it looks better, because I think Maguire is so slow. There was a situation, I think it was against Wolves, where Bailly came over and covered Maguire, and in the same move, he actually then went back and managed to cover the space at the same time. It was incredible athleticism that Maguire could only dream of having. So I just think that's why we think Bailly's so good, because I think the things that we look for from Bailly, power, athleticism, flexibility, his all-round ability. We just want to see that in the other defenders, and they haven't got that, and so it looks amazing when we've got it. But I think one thing that the Bailly thing has proven, Haider, is I think we've all said on this show that if Maguire's going to make it at United or Lindelof's going to improve, they need to play with a defender that's got that pace, power, and ability next to them. And all Bailly's doing at the moment is proving that theory right. Whether Bailly's that one defender, I'm not sure, but it's definitely shown Ollie and all of us that the type of profile of defender that we need to go for next. And I don't know enough about Paul Torres. I don't know if he's that type of defender, but I think that's what United need to look at. The defender that they bring in next needs to be powerful, quick. can get himself out of awkward situations, could cover well, because he's going to have to when he plays alongside the other defenders at club.
Absolutely. Ciaran, before I come to you, I'm going to read out Joseph's comments. I believe you're talking about Tuanzebe here. We need cover for right back, and if Williams goes on loan, I think he could cover like Wes Brown did till the summer. I think that's probably where Tuanzebe will get most of his game time. I thought he looked really good against Everton. What he can do is he can press up high, and I think he gets into good position. He's athletic. He's very good on the ball. Tuanzebe, that's an underrated aspect of his game that I think a lot of people overlook. But Ciaran, Reese has got a comment here. It's your birthday on the 12th, mate. Don't worry, mate. I'll get that Upamecano Bayern Munich shirt sent over to you in the post. I'll also be
only €80, Haider. It's not much. I think it'll only be about €80.
You haven't worked as much. It's a lot, mate. But you've got another comment here from Reese. I don't know if we need a left-footed centre back specifically. I just think we need a centre back that's quick, can lead the defence, and is comfortable both defensively and going forward. That frees their centre-back partner. What do you think about that, Ciaran? I know you're a massive fan of Pau Torres, but firstly, tell me what you think about Eric Bailly, because we know that defensive centre-back pairings are all about combinations. Now, I think Lindelof and Maguire have made each other look worse than they are. I actually think Lindelof is a very good footballer. Biggest problem, we all know, under the high ball. But actually, before his injury, he was really starting to spray those long passes we saw at Benfica. And Maguire, again, not a bad player at all, but both of them together just made each other worse because both of each other's deficiencies, neither of them were covering them, and then they were just exasperating their current deficiencies. So when you look over at Eric Bailly, all he's done simply is he's had that recovery pace, he's aggressive, he's good in the air, and what that's done, actually, I think Maguire's just relaxed. Maguire's like, right, okay, you know what, if I get done for pace like he did running through treacle, what you have is you have Eric Bailly coming to cover me, then covering himself. So I honestly think that while Bailly, I don't think he's United's best centre back.
I've seen Maguire Milk turn quicker than Maguire.
Honestly, mate, he's a bit of a slow, isn't he? But I honestly do think that when you look at the way that Bailly plays, it might just be the fact that because he has those qualities which Maguire needs next to him, Maguire's confidence will increase. He'll be more calmer on the ball, and actually, United's defense will get better. So, yeah, talk to me about your thoughts on Bailly, and talk to me as well about your thoughts on Pau Torres, because I know you're a massive, massive fan. And then we're going to finish off by talking about our good friend at Liverpool, Mr. Jurgen Klopp, and I hope he's still not crying after Liverpool lost yesterday. Yeah, and he likes to talk about us, so I'm going to talk about him. Not that he'll know who I am, but anyway.
Yeah, I think Bailly's, it's an interesting one because he came in, and that first season, I remember there was a lot of plaudits towards Bailly, but look, he hasn't been able to stay fit, and I think part of it is the way he plays. He's a bit of a madman out there. He kind of reminds me a bit of like Carlos Puyol, the way he plays, just like full force. Like you saw it when the referee blew his whistle, and he still went in for a hard challenge, and he was pretty close from not getting a bit of a red card in that one as well. But that, I think that's the thing, is he just goes all out, and at times he just doesn't think, and he's just reacting to what happens. But what Joe said, I think, is definitely right. And the fact that what he's shown is that if you want Maguire being part of like the back four for a longer period of time, you have to have someone with a bit of athleticism. I can't remember if it was the last game or the game against Wolves where there was a ball that came in. I think it deflected off, and there was a striker about to come onto it, but Maguire was closer to the ball, and it took him so long to get to the ball that it's one of those that really, I don't know how long you can actually get out of Maguire being one of your top centre backs. I think you can have him for maybe 2 or 3 more seasons, but after that, you're probably pushing it. And United have to look at the short term, but also the long term. For me, yeah, I've said it all season. Like, if you want to protect Bailly as well, you probably don't play him in every single game because, look, he is injury prone. We can say whatever it is. He gets many different muscle injuries throughout seasons that kind of leave him out for months at a time. You need to give Axel the chance, especially, look, in that game against Watford for the FA Cup, Axel should be starting at centre-back because, again, we should be giving our starting centre-backs in the Premier League some rest. I don't want to see Maguire play in Europa League.
I wouldn't be playing Bailly either.
No, I don't want to see them playing in the Europa League. I want to see Axel playing because look, the game where I think it was early on the season when Maguire wasn't able to play because he was injured for like one game. I think Axel came in and he was excellent. But then he makes a mistake in another game and gets pulled. Look, I think you have to look at it. Axel is just as athletic as Bailly is. You saw it with the PSG game and the first time we played them. The difference is that Axel's actually more cool-headed than Bailly, and he doesn't go in for rash challenges because, look, at the end of the day, Bailly has a little more Marcus Rojo in him than any of our other centre-backs that we're going to be keeping. And it is a worry because you want your centre-backs to be composed. Look, everyone knew Vidic would go in 100 miles an hour, but at the same time, he was a very relaxed centre-back as well, and he knew what he was doing. With Bailly, there's always that chance that the minute he goes down for a challenge, everyone's thinking the same, he's probably going to get injured here. So it's one of those. But yeah, I think the style of the athlete we do need beside Maguire, because look, his limitation is a big one. The fact that he's a centre-back, then his mobility is very limited, is a big problem.
As well, which is a massive thing.
Honestly, if you're looking for the perfect centre-back for the United system, unfortunately, is at Manchester City, and it's Laporte.
Yeah.
If he was available, let's say they didn't play him for the majority of games, and his agent started talking up. If I was United, I would be checking in because he's the perfect player. He's very athletic, left-footed. He's athletic, strong, and honestly, I don't see why City aren't playing him because every time I see him play, he's one of their best players defensively. So he's always been one of my favorites.
I do think that. Yeah, even when he was at Bilbao. But one thing, actually, I think if people don't know much about Pau Torres, I would say that actually the closest player to Pau Torres probably is Aymeric Laporte. I'd probably say there's, if you think, I think Laporte is probably quicker, but actually the way they play, left-footed, there's not many better left-footed centre-backs in the world than Laporte. And it does beg to differ what's going on behind the scenes. I know he's injured at the moment, Ciaran, but Ruben Diaz has come in and been absolutely phenomenal. He's been the best at the back in the league for me, possibly with Vestergaard, who's been very good as well. But when you look at it, if he's not getting game time, United, if they want to buy a centre-back that's settled in Manchester, it's never going to happen, let's be honest. But if ever did...
Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's more finding that style of centre-back. Because, look, Laporta's had his injuries too. I know he's torn his ACL once or twice at Bilbao. So I think it's important that that you do look at a player that's similar. We spoke about it in the summer with Pau Torres, with Gabriel, and there was a couple of others
as well.
Yeah, so it's all that stuff. So it's not a shock to know what United are looking for. Pau Torres is one of the younger players coming up in that Spanish national team that people really want. And it's why Madrid have been interested. Barcelona have checked in on him as well. So it's not going to be easy to get him because, look, the minute United get involved in that transfer, you're going to start to see the rumours of Madrid and Barcelona because they've been monitoring him for years. So it's a difficult one. He fits the style that we clearly have been looking for. But again, it's a tough one. I'd like him to come in. I know I did a story on him during the summer, and for me, when you were talking about Gabriel, Badiashile, and Pau Torres, for me, miles ahead was Pau Torres, and then I actually preferred Badiashile just as kind of that more raw option because Gabriel has his limitations. Now, he's been very good in the Arsenal side, but I don't know how great he would be in the United side the way we've played because he would have been played next to Maguire, and you need a bit more composure than I think Gabriel has shown because he's had some great games for Arsenal, but then there have been some problems as well that you saw at Lille. So again, I think if United get him, I think United fans should be very happy because it's not easy to get players like that out of Spain. Very similar to like in Germany. It's hard to get the top German players out of Germany. Hopefully they'll be able to do that because, look, we've been talking about it for the last few months. We need another centre-back, and it doesn't look to be Upamecano. He's probably off to Bayern Munich.
Ciaran, just a quick question. How much would he be available for? Do you know?
It's weird because his release clause is anywhere between, I don't think it's been officially released, it's between like 50 to 70 million euros. So I think last summer it was probably 55. My guess is that they'll probably, once teams in Spain hear of Madrid, Barcelona going after players, they have certain ways of increasing those release clauses because they want to do that. My guess is if you're signing them, you probably have to bid between 60 and 70 million euro to get them.
Yeah, agreed. I'm going to read that one comment before we talk about our good friend Jurgen Klopp, the Green Devil. This is exactly how I felt, mate. When I saw both players go to City, Laporte and Diaz, I was really upset. And you're saying here they were there for the taking. We needed a centre back since the Fergie days. How do we not go for them? Exactly. I wanted Diaz before. I wanted him over Maguire. I just thought the money was a little bit cheaper as well. You could see the player was there. The question was, how would he develop under Pep? And you've seen a lot of centre backs go there. John Stones, Otamendi, they've all regressed, but actually Diaz has been fantastic. You've got to give them credit. And that 60 million is looking like a good signing because they've got the best defense in the league right now, statistically anyway, speaking. But let's talk about Jurgen Klopp and his comments. So this is how I see it. And I know Ciaran's got a few statistics on how many penalties we've had. He tweeted it yesterday. But Mark, as I see it, he's getting a little bit worried. He's looking over his shoulder and we're like, oh, mate, the biggest club in England are coming after me. Last season, I had an absolute ride. I won the league by Christmas. And now his side aren't firing. Look, still a very good side. But he's now seeing this Man United side can really do some damage with a lot of their defensive players out, the way that we are in the transition. He knows it's a good Man United side. And now I feel like what he's doing is he's trying to divert the terrible performances and the results away from from his team and trying to point it towards Man United, because at the moment we're just the talk of the town. I think when Man United are being talked about, which it hasn't felt like this for a long time, that people think that we're starting to slowly climb our way back up. So what are your thoughts on Klopp's comments, and do you think that the rest of the league are starting to get a little bit worried about what they're seeing over at Old Trafford?
Yeah, I think he's rattled a bit, isn't he? And I think to deflect your team's performances in that way is also not a very good way to do that, because I think it's very obvious. Well, this is what I was saying earlier about Pep and the way that he set up against Chelsea as opposed to how he set up against us and probably how he'll set up tomorrow. I think that everyone is very much aware of just how dangerous probably United are. As I said earlier, we have got defensive frailties, but from a counter-attacking perspective, we're very good. So I think he's probably just trying to get his comments early. And yeah, I've seen a lot of tweets over the last few days and various things that suggest that, we're being looked upon and used in every conversation where it's not needed, just because there's some sort of respect that's starting to build again. And look, we're only a few weeks down the road from before Christmas, November time, when we were a bit concerned. So you want to take things with a little bit of pinch of salt, and hopefully you can still continue. And if people are still talking about us like this in a few months, fantastic, because that's only going to help us and give us some real emphasis. But I mean, it's always fun just to sort of see these comments and laugh about it. But it's a good position to be in, and hopefully that will continue, and hopefully will be firmly in his mind when we go to Anfield. So we just have to wait and see.
Absolutely. Heli saying here, Joe, that Jurgen is rattled and showing his true colours. Penalties, for goodness sake. Reese saying here, so much from Mr. Nice Guy is nothing more than a bully and acting like a petulant child. I honestly don't understand, Joe, how he didn't get charged after his comments about the referees. Jose Mourinho said a similar thing and he got charged. And he's trying to take a leaf out of the Fergie playbook. Look, Fergie was a master at it, but I feel like Klopp's just coming across as just a quite bitter, isn't he? Quite whiny. Look, he's still a fantastic manager. I'm not going to go and downgrade how good this Liverpool side, maybe not right now, but they're still a very good side, and Manchester United are trying to overtake them. But what you're seeing right now is just seeing confidence slowly growing. And I honestly do think that United go and win at Anfield. I know, sorry, it's at Old Trafford, isn't it? But if United beat them, then that will be a huge step in our development. But Klopp, talking about United, shows there are starting to see some signs of cracks coming in.
Yeah, mate, there's a couple of things on this for me. Look, it's a weird one, mate, because I don't really get where he's coming from. And if I was a Liverpool fan, to be honest with you, I'd be quite worried about this, because for me, I think when managers start doing this, they do it because there's an issue within their own club and with their own form that they're really worried about at the moment. Now, I can understand that a little bit, because he hasn't really got many recognised defenders he can rely on. You look at the two at the back that he had to put out the other day, but I think it's worrying signs. But also, as a Liverpool fan, I'd be thinking, why does he need to do this now? Like, why is he doing this? Because why is he worried about Manchester United for a start? A team that's been nowhere near the title, really, for 7 years. Let's be honest with you, we love our club, but we know the flaws in it. We know we know ourselves we're going to struggle to maintain a title charge right until the end. And I think when you look at Liverpool, I still think if they could put that run together, and they could put a 6-7 game win run together, they can still win this league quite comfortably. It's there for the taking. This is a free one for them, really. Last year, you could say that was a free one, how it panned out. But before the season started, Man City was strong. You didn't know what you were going to get from everybody else. But when you look at what's happening this season and how poor everyone else has been, if Liverpool could be 3/4 as good as they were last year, they'd walk this league. So, I think it's a bit worrying, just more from a Liverpool point of view, from a Liverpool fan's point of view, that he feels like he needs to do this now. It's a little bit like when Rafa did his press conference, didn't he, about the facts. I think from there, everyone knew that was probably Liverpool done. Because he just did it. He just basically declared it himself at that press conference. And if I was a Liverpool fan, it's not quite up there with the facts press conference, but there's little things that are coming from him and Guardiola, and almost like waving the white flag. And we're in January, mate, and it's just like I wouldn't like it, and I don't think it's necessary either. Because I still think, Haider, on the day, that 11, if he can get at least one fit centre back to play alongside Firmino, they should still win this league easily. So, for whatever reason, something's not right there. I mean, there's been talk about Mo Salah not being happy at the moment. Is there more to that? I mean, I don't know. It is
100%. He's been angling for a move for 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. But is that starting to affect the psyche, the chemistry amongst them all? Obviously, Firmino's goal scoring has been well documented as well. Yotta's been a big miss, because he's been a brilliant signing for them, I think, and he allows them to rotate that front three. He's not rotating that front three well enough as well, but that's not our problem. At the end of the day, I think we've just got to watch, because at the moment, I just think these teams like City with Pep moaning, Klopp with Liverpool, they're just imploding, and it's fun to watch, and it's just like, I don't really get it, because I'm a Man United fan, and I know my club more than like you guys. We know it better than anyone. So I'm looking at our club, I'm thinking, I don't know why people are that scared of us. I know what we've got, and I know we can be dangerous, but we haven't been in a title race for 7 years. So, like, why are you worried about us, sort of thing? You know what I mean? These are young players, but no, it is what it is, mate. But the penalty thing doesn't stack up, because for me, I've always said with penalties, you can moan what you want about. You only get penalties, Haider, when you play good attacking football, because you have to have touches in the box. You need to have attacking intent to win penalties. There's a reason why we win a lot, because we get the ball in the box now, and we're dangerous, and we've got technical players in the box that win penalties. And that, for me, is a positive rather than anything that's given to us by referees.
Absolutely. And what I will add to that, Kim, before I come to you for the final word on Jurgen Klopp, what I will say is that Liverpool can go and win 21.
Yeah.
That is, if there's anything that needs to spur these boys on, and Ollie will know that more than anyone else, is that it's the fact that Liverpool can go and win 21 before us. We cannot rely on any other team in the league. It's about time the Man United stand up and stop. Every year for the last 7 years, we've hoping that, it's like choosing between the lesser of two evils, City or Liverpool winning it. That shouldn't be the case anymore. We need to step up now. We need to stop relying on other teams to do our business for us. And I'm actually happy to see that we're sitting here. It looks so long to go before we can say we're actual challengers, but sitting here at Christmas, New Year, bloody hell, Christmas. This year has just been one long, just mash of events. But anyway, we're sitting here and we're saying we're genuinely at this stage we could be top. When have we said that? And this is time. It's time now, Ciaran, that Man United stand up and we take this into our own hands. But what I will also add to that is that this idea about penalties, VAR has come in, right? It's come in, 2 years ago? So how can anyone say that the penalties aren't fair? They get checked. They get checked every single week. So it's not like the referee's making a mistake. They get checked. So
there's no substance to any of the evidence they come with, is there? So it's just something to moan about.
And Bruno Fernandes, who's a midfielder, he's putting up absolutely unbelievable numbers, and it's just turned this club around, and what a fantastic signing by the club and by Oli. But how can they turn around and say it's about penalties? Because we're not winning because of penalties. It's just absolute nonsense. And when you see this sort of stuff, Ciaran, it just makes you laugh, and it makes you think they are getting worried, aren't they? Slowly, that it looked like it was good form. We turned it around. We have a PE teacher in charge, but actually, you know what? We're not half bad. And I agree with Joe. We look at our team and we think, there's so many gaps in our side, but actually looking around at the rest of the league, there's gaps in their sides as well. So there's a very big opportunity here for Man United.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and just looking at it there, that Brentford have just equalised in the semi-final, so that's always good for us. But yeah, look, it goes back to actually the VAR part that you just mentioned there, Haider. The fact that we're getting decisions because of VAR is because the referees are making mistakes. And the teams that have actually gotten more decisions because of VAR is because, that the referees made the initial call that would have been there before VAR, and it would have been an error. That's what we're trying to kick out of the game. We're trying to make it so that anything that you get, you're deserving. So at the end of the day, you're having the referee who's on the pitch, another referee who's working VAR. So it's better than we had it before. And look, I've always said this as well, and it's to a lot of Liverpool fans because they're being all salty yesterday, that at the end of the day, if you don't have skillful players in and around the box, you're not going to get many penalties. The reason why United didn't get many penalties under Jose Mourinho is because we didn't actually attack as much. So when you see Chelsea fans, you see Spurs fans, and you see Liverpool fans. Look, Liverpool score a lot of goals, but a lot of them come from crosses. So that's the reason why they don't get as many as they should. The other thing for Tottenham is after they score, they stop attacking for about an hour of the game. You'll just see it tonight. So they're not going to get many either. But the teams that have skillful players, so you look at Leicester, they have skillful players. They've gotten the most amount of penalties. That's just the way it works. And just for so we can make it clear on how it's actually impacted in terms of wins and losses. United have scored 5 penalties this season. So have Liverpool, exact same amount. When you actually go back to the last 2 years and how many penalties have been awarded, Liverpool have gotten 30, while United have gotten 27. So again, the big teams statistically always get the most amount of penalties because they're attacking more. When United were playing more kind of pragmatic football under Jose Mourinho, I think we probably, one of those seasons were like, will we ever get a penalty?
It was years. It felt like a year before we got a penalty. Do you remember? We just never got it.
Because we never attacked. It was the same under Van Gaal. We never attacked for the first half, so we didn't get many penalties. Right now, you have Bruno, you have Martial, you have Rashford that take on players. And look, at the end of the day, the way it worked early on in the season, everybody was getting penalties because of the stupid handball rule that was going on. So I think this season, to complain about it, everybody was getting it. I think Liverpool got a penalty in each one of their first couple of games. So it happens. And you also have to look at it. United have conceded a lot of penalties as well this season. So it ebbs and flows. You'll go through periods of time where you'll get a lot of penalties, and then you'll go through times when you won't. I think opposition fans are always going to complain because you always think that your biggest rivals get more penalties. It's the reason why a lot of our rival fans call us kind of Varchester United or Penandes and stuff like that, and why people call Liverpool Liverpool.
Yeah,
it's because everybody, when they're watching their rivals, they want them to lose, and when they get a decision that's for them, people go mad. And that's the way it is. What I think is what Joe was saying as well. Was really when an opposition manager has to come out and say something, it kind of does show something's going wrong within their own dressing room. Because when have you heard Ollie ever mention an opposition unless he's congratulated them? Never does, because like you said earlier, Haider, is when we lose, he puts the blame on himself. And when we win, he gives all the praise to the players. And that's what a manager's supposed to do.
I couldn't agree more with that. That's a fantastic way to end. Guys, I know it's been a long show today, but honestly, your comments have been amazing. And we haven't been back actually since before Christmas. So thank you so much for listening. Mark has said if United win the league, he will do this show topless. Mark just wants to get the guns out. And yeah, if we win the league, I don't know what I'll do. But what I will say is, guys, keep the faith. This is a special season. This season, I really feel like something special could happen. So make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Tell your friends about this show if you enjoy it, and we will see you next week.